In this last video in our series of developing virtual practicals, we're taking a closer look at the technical side of creating an online tool that can be used for many different needs and many different practicals. Here we have members of the team that were heavily involved in making a translation between the educational side of practicals and the development component to code this entire online tool from scratch. We're covering learnings we had, tips for future teams, but of course also the steps that we took to a first prototype of this tool. I would say let's hear it from the team, Sabine, Amaya, and Antoine, our developer.
I was thinking what will be the level of reality or thing I have to put inside this application to really make an application. Then you can interact with it. Okay, we need a lot of interaction because it's a virtual practical, so students have to practice and to feel reality. So my first thought was, how could I transcribe this kind of mechanism, or what will it be in a virtual application, in an application. I use a framework, developing framework, which name is Angular. Okay, and in Angular you work with components. Components are small pieces of code that you can reuse across an application. So this particular mechanisms make me think about, okay, what we really want is we want an interactive PowerPoint, and we want each slide of a PowerPoint could be adapted if we give this slide only the content, and the application will create everything just giving the application the content. Okay, so we can split the application in multiple components, like question components and components to display images, to display some kind of information. And if we want to change the information, it's not a problem. If we want to duplicate these components, it's not a problem. We can do it very easily. So the templates are fixed backbone, and you can provide this backbone everything you want to personalize, to change this backbone to your needs. Okay, so we can use the same component for dissection and for cell culture, because, for example, questions components, it's multiple choice or simple choice question. The only things which is changing is a question content. I perform an injection of component, which is a little bit technical, but I have to, at the beginning of the application, when you click on the dissection, for example, I will take all the list of the component which is provided to the application, and then I inject every component in the right order, which is a little bit different of what is normally done, where in our applications the order is not hard-coded. It's dynamically generated at the launching of the application. When you click on your you choose your virtual practical, dissection, cell culture, or anything, and then at this moment when you click it, the application take the list of the component and inject them in the code at the right place. Okay, so it's dynamically created. It's not hard-coded. The beginning of the coding, I think I propose a very basic versions. I just want to show Amaya and Sabine how things could work. If you want to display some images, I create a component which can display images. If you want a component to display text, I can code some things to display text. I think they fully understand, okay, we have to provide Antoine the type of templates component we want, and we have to provide him the content and some example content, and then he will code everything to welcome our content, and then we work like they give me, okay, we want this type of component, and I code this component, and we work the application this way. I am lucky because I was a scientist before, so I can understand we call it the business logic. Okay, sometimes I know that when we are scientists, we it's difficult for us to make the switch to say, okay, those people, those coding people or other people, don't think like us, okay? And sometimes we have an idea, we want to change a little. It's really nothing. It's just a little bit of a thing, but behind that, we have to redo everything because this change is not as easy as it seems to implement inside an application. That's why this project is not like a classical client coding project, but I think we work more in a like agile way. So where things can evolve in the development. Okay, it was more easy for everyone, I think, to work like that because we learn coding and we learn things when we develop the application. The requirement change.
It was, I think, for all of us a learning process. Apart from thinking about the content, we also had to keep in mind like what is feasible to do with this platform. And I think Antoine was really good in guiding us there. Like you say, then he created templates. So then also we used PowerPoint, for instance, but every slide we then gave him what he needed to fill in the template. And sometimes, yeah, we had to go back one step to rethink, okay, if we cannot do it in this way, maybe then we have to redesign it a bit.
Yes, one of the difficulty, I think, it's just to try to think reusability. Is it really necessary, or does it add value to this little thing?
Yeah, I mean, cell culture is something that is done like in a lot of laboratories in the world, and it's quite established what you have to do. But then even Sabine and I were having discussions about how this step is done in my lab and how this step is done in the other lab. And sometimes we find that we do things differently, which was very surprising, being like a very basic technique that is used everywhere. And then we have to agree on what to put in the practical. Of course, it was like things that are not really critical, but when you teach, we teach differently to our students. So we have to agree on that also.
One of the innovative one I never used was the 360 images. So luckily for us, someone has already developed a package to display those kind of images for my particular framework, which is Angular. It was very easy to integrate this package in our application and to develop the viewer. This project is open source, like supported by the European Union. So when you download the application, you have the world's source code of the application, and you can change it the way you want. You can change everything, like the color, the images. You can add components. You can suppress components that you don't want to play with, and you can do whatever you want with the application. I think you have to have a little bit of knowledge on Angular, for example, to be able to change things at the right place and in coding. But if you want to use it and to develop it and to change things, you can do it whatever you want. I think for the moment, you provide the application like a big file, a JSON. This is the format of the file, and the application read this big file with the link of the images or the content of the questions or the title of the component and everything. So it's not very user friendly for someone who is not in the developing or who have little bit of knowledge in IT or codings. Okay, so what I started is to make a graphical interface for teacher to build this file. So in my ID, what could be great if there is a follow up of this project is like teacher could use graphical interface just to drag and drop like components and to link them. Okay, this is the first component of the virtual practical, and you link it to another one, and then when you will click on next, it will bring the other component, and so on. So the next step, I think, is to build this teacher application for them to be able to visually build all the virtual practical like that, or other kind of practical or thing like that.
In order to test if this tool was really triggering people and making people learn new things, we sent it off to technicians, but really cell culture trained technicians, as well as some PhD students, to give us feedback, to try it out. And then you can see that when you look with another pair of eyes at these questions, sometimes issues arise that created it interpreted it in a certain way, but they interpreted it in a different way. So that led sometimes to reformulating a question, or even reformulating answers, or maybe two answers were correct. When we started, we knew that there were some tools already out there, but of course, some are payable, some are maybe accessible by some partners. But the idea was of the project that we were rethinking these tools for using in online teaching. And the best way, of course, to do that is to go ourselves step by step through it. Of course, for us as teachers, that was maybe a bigger challenge than for the people coding. But I think it was a good learning curve, because then the way we designed the platform, we learned from it. Like we were talking with the designer, with the ones coding behind the scenes. So although there was existing tools, I think it's good to think about, okay, how do I design material, and how is that then converted into a code that works in an online interface. So the tool we developed actually covers the learning goals quite nicely. Of course, before, when you have a real life practical, we set up some learning goals, and I think we did a good job in designing a platform that actually can cover the similar learning goals. So the way we now plan to incorporate this tool, regardless if there is a pandemic or not, I think we still will always include this tool for people really starting in doing cell culture, because it is a sterile environment. It is very important to work in a clean way in a cell culture lab. So this tool actually prepares the students at another level to, yeah, not, well, of course it's okay to make mistakes, but not make big mistakes when you enter the real lab. So they will have a better way of preparing themselves by making mistakes in this online platform. There they can go back and forth to tweak their knowledge. And then we have students that are better informed before they enter the real cell culture lab.
I think we achieve more than we say we will do, because now we have a tool, and so we can reuse that tool to integrate all as many as practical as we want. Okay, because like it's not hard coded like we first planned to do, like two practicals, cell culture and dissections. So now we have tools to display practical, so we can reuse that tool. So I think we really go a step further. That's what we originally planned to do. So the second practical is about dissection. So I was not involved as much as I was in the first, because we already yes, we want to test if it's usable for someone with low coding knowledge. I made a list of all the kind of components we have coded for the cell culture, and with that, Oscar sent me pieces of code which I try to insert in the application to see if everything is going well. And actually, yes, it's pretty. Oscar tell me that it's not as complicated as its first look. So yes, you can easily, even if there is not the second application I wanted to code with the graphical interface, at the moment it's actually usable. They manage to produce some things.